Imagine a building so bold, so impossibly modern, that it defied the laws of architecture, the limits of technology, and the very idea of what a monument could be. Now imagine it was never built. In the ashes of war, in the chaos of revolution, one man dared to dream not of what was, but of what could be. A structure that would tower above the ruins of empire, not as a symbol of power, but as a machine for the future. This is the story of Tatlin's Tower. It is 1919. Russia is gasping from the trauma of World War I, bleeding from revolution, and teetering on the edge of civil war. The Bolsheviks have overthrown the monarchy, seized power, and declared a new era. Gone are the czars, gone are the Romanovs, gone is the old world. In its place, a radical promise, a nation for workers, for equality, for the future. But how do you symbolize a future that's never existed? Enter Vladimir Tatlin, a painter, a sculptor, a former sailor who believed that art should not imitate life, it should shape it. Tatlin rejected classical beauty. He laughed at tradition. He wanted a new art for a new world, one that reflected the power of machines, the chaos of change, and the precision of progress. And he would channel all of that energy into one single form, a monument to the Third International, the global communist movement. But this monument wasn't just a statue, it was a provocation. Tatlin proposed a structure over 400 meters tall. That's higher than the Eiffel Tower. But it wasn't just about size. The tower would be built of steel, glass, and iron, a swirling double helix that reached toward the sky, symbolizing eternal motion, revolution, and human progress. Inside, 4 rotating volumes, each made of glass, would turn at different speeds. A cube for legislative work, rotating once a year. A pyramid for executive meetings once a month. A cylinder for daily propaganda. A hemisphere broadcasting news every hour. This wasn't a building, it was a machine. A kinetic sculpture synchronized with time and ideology. Tatlin's Tower was more than metal and glass. It was a philosophy. Where past monuments were static, frozen in time, Tatlin's would move. Where statues glorified emperors, his would glorify the future. He merged technology with ideology and turned architecture into a living engine of revolution. It wasn't built to be admired, it was built to provoke. To ask, what should the world become? Tatlin built a full-scale wooden model in 1920, but the Soviet Union, barely functioning, couldn't supply the materials. No steel, no glass, no workforce, no funding. The dream was too big, the reality too fragile. The tower was never built, and yet it was never forgotten. Tatlin's Tower became the ultimate symbol of utopia unfulfilled. It echoed through time, in the sweeping curves of Zaha Hadid, whose parametric structures seemed to channel the very fluidity and movement Tatlin imagined. In Daniel Libeskind's fragmented geometries, particularly his proposal for Parc de la Villette, a conceptual battlefield of planes and ruptures drawn straight from constructivist DNA. In the haunting speculative landscapes of Lebbeus woods, where ruined cities rebuild themselves as ideological machines, and in the analytical rigor of Peter Eisenman, who deconstructed architecture into language, layers, and logic, challenging the very meaning of space. Koolhaas echoes Tatlin in a different register, through contradictions, provocations, and spatial polemics that resist formality and fixity. Even architects like Norman Foster and Richard Rogers, pioneers of high-tech, carried forward Tatlin's idea of architecture as exposed machinery, transparent, honest, and in constant dialogue with technology. These architects don't just build, they question, and Tatlin's Unbuilt Tower may be the loudest question of all. Some icons are remembered not because they were built, but because they refused to be forgotten. Tatlin didn't build a tower, he built a vision, a symbol of motion, of power, of the possible. He didn't build an answer. He built a question: what should the future look like? Across the world, Tatlin's Tower has risen in new forms. In Paris, at the Centre Pompidou, a towering replica stood among constructivist icons. In Moscow, a partial model echoed its radical roots. And in Stockholm, a full-scale wooden version dominated the Moderna Museet courtyard, standing not as nostalgia, but as defiance. Each version, a fragment of a dream that still spins. Tatlin's tower wasn't built in steel. It was built in the collective imagination. It remains the most iconic monument never constructed, because it didn't just propose a structure, it proposed a future, and that future is still waiting. If this journey into architecture's most radical unbuilt dream inspired you, subscribe to Space, Shape, and Scale. We uncover the buildings, the blueprints, and the revolutions that reshaped our world. One sketch, one steel beam, one dream at a time.